John Harlan gripped his phone tightly, his voice steady as he laid out the damning evidence to state investigator Robert Hayes. "Look, I've got the financials right here. Margaret Pierce has been siphoning HOA funds for years. Kickbacks from contractors, a secret slush fund. It's all in the records I pulled." As a forensic accountant, John had seen his share of crooked schemes, but this one hit close to home, literally. Suddenly, the distant whine of police drones pierced the air, followed by the wail of sirens closing in on his quiet lakeside neighborhood in Willow Creek. John's heart raced as he peered out the window. There, in his driveway, was Dylan Pierce, Margaret's teenage son, fumbling with wires under the seat of John's prized Harley motorcycle. The kid was trying to hotwire it, his face twisted in concentration. Before John could react, Margaret herself appeared on the scene, phone in hand, streaming live on Facebook. "Everyone, this is outrageous. My poor Dylan was just admiring this man's bike, invoking the youthful desires provision in our community guidelines. But now, Luke's causing my son emotional distress. This is harassment." Her voice dripped with faux outrage, painting John as the villain in her twisted narrative. The comments flooded in, some neighbors buying her story, others questioning it, sparking immediate debates online about parental entitlement and property rights. John's mind whirled. The timing couldn't have been more perfect or ironic. His call with Hayes was being recorded, capturing every second of this farce in real time. "Robert, you hearing this? She's framing me right now," John whispered into the phone, his pulse pounding. Willow Creek had seemed like paradise when John and his wife Sarah first moved in 5 years ago. Nestled by a serene lake, it promised peace and community. But that illusion shattered under Margaret Pierce's iron-fisted rule as HOA president. A power-hungry widow in her 50s, Margaret enforced petty rules with glee: no unapproved decorations, strict color schemes for houses, and fines for the slightest infraction. She built a cult of follower sycophants who benefited from her favoritism while bullying anyone who dared question her. John, stubborn and world-weary from years crunching numbers on corporate fraud, wasn't one to back down. He protected Sarah, his naive but fiercely loyal wife, who saw the good in everyone. Their troubles started innocently enough. Sarah hung a whimsical birdhouse in their yard, a splash of color amid the monotonous beige homes. Margaret slapped them with a violation notice, claiming it violated aesthetic standards. Fines piled up, escalating from warnings to threats of liens. Then came the real target, John's Harley, a gleaming symbol of his independence, parked proudly in the driveway. Margaret deemed it a noise nuisance, even though he rarely rode it. Whispers spread that she coveted it for Dylan, her spoiled son, who eyed it with a calculating gleam whenever he passed by. John refused to pay a dime, seeing it as a stand against tyranny. "It's not about the money," he'd tell Sarah. "It's about not letting bullies win." Determined to fight back, John requested the HOA's financial records under state law. What he uncovered shocked even him: embezzlement on a grand scale. Margaret had funneled thousands into personal accounts, taken kickbacks from landscapers, and maintained a slush fund for discretionary expenses that suspiciously matched her lavish vacations. Suspicion grew around Dylan too. John installed a state-of-the-art 4K security camera after catching the kid lingering near the bike one too many times. Margaret fought dirty, issuing more violations for the camera itself, calling it an eyesore. John turned to his Uncle Frank, a retired cop with a knack for strategy, who advised, "Document everything, kid. These types crumble under scrutiny." The standoff intensified. Margaret delayed handing over records, but John persisted, compiling an airtight dossier of fraud. Finally, he called Hayes at the state attorney's office, presenting his case meticulously. That's when the drones and sirens erupted, pulling him into the chaos outside. As police swarmed the driveway, John watched Dylan freeze, tools in hand. Margaret's live stream captured it all, her accusations flying wildly. But John's camera rolled too, recording Dylan's attempted theft in crystal-clear detail. And Hayes, still on the line, heard every word. "John, send me that footage now," Hayes barked. This just became Exhibit A. In the immediate aftermath, Hayes radioed the officers on site, turning Margaret's stunt against her. The cops detained Dylan for questioning, and Margaret's face paled as her stream backfired spectacularly. John could have reveled in revenge, maybe even pressed charges against the kid personally, but he chose justice instead, emailing the video to Hayes on the spot. "Let the system handle it," he muttered, though part of him burned with anger. Word spread like wildfire. Uncle Frank, ever the agitator, leaked the footage to local news outlets, igniting a media frenzy. Stories of Margaret's abuses poured in on social media. Neighbors shared tales of exorbitant fines for minor infractions, coerced votes at meetings, even threats of eviction for dissenters. Debates raged online. Some defended Margaret, arguing she kept the neighborhood pristine and that John's resistance disrupted community harmony, while others hailed him as a hero against overreach. The controversy divided Willow Creek, with heated arguments at coffee shops and forums questioning whether HOA power had gone too far or if strict rules were necessary for property values. Margaret didn't go quietly. In a desperate bid, she issued a $500 fine to John for nuisance activity. Ironically, the police raid she'd orchestrated with a false emergency call. She forged bank statements, trying to frame John as the embezzler, planting them in HOA files. But her panic led to a fatal slip. The fakes accidentally exposed a deeper conspiracy. Buried in the documents was evidence of her plot to sell Lot 12, a protected community green space by the lake, to River Bend Development Group. She'd pocket millions personally, betraying the very residents she claimed to serve. Environmentalists jumped in, decrying the potential destruction of wildlife habitat, while developers' supporters argued it would bring jobs and revenue, fueling even more public outcry. The climax hit at an emergency HOA meeting. Margaret called to salvage her ring. The community center buzzed with tension as she gaslit the crowd. "This is a witch hunt. John Harlan is the real criminal. Look at these statements." She waved the forgeries triumphantly. Murmurs rippled through the room, some nodding in agreement, others skeptical. John stood, calm but resolute. "Those are fakes, Margaret, and they prove your bigger crime." He projected his evidence on a screen. The embezzlement trail, the land deal emails, everything. Gasps echoed as residents realized the betrayal. "She's selling our heritage for personal gain," one shouted. Chaos erupted. Arguments flared, with Margaret's loyalists defending her as a visionary leader, while opponents accused her of corruption that could ruin the neighborhood's soul. Just then, Hayes burst in with detectives, badges flashing. "Margaret Pierce, you're under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and public corruption. This meeting's over." The room fell silent, then erupted in applause from most. A unanimous no-confidence vote stripped her of power on the spot, though not without bitter protests from her dwindling supporters, who claimed the ouster was undemocratic. In the fallout, Margaret was arrested, facing a slew of charges including the false 911 call that summoned those drones. Prosecutors hinted at a RICO case, unraveling her web of co-conspirators on the board. A full audit recovered stolen funds, implicating her inner circle. The community reeled, but a transitional board stepped in, nullifying absurd fines and preserving Lot 12 as a nature preserve. Debates lingered. Was Margaret a monster, or a product of a flawed system that empowered such figures? Some residents even started petitions for HOA reforms statewide, turning Willow Creek into a flashpoint for controversy. Peace returned slowly for John and Sarah. They rehung the birdhouse, now a defiant emblem of their victory, its cheerful chirps a soundtrack to reclaim tranquility. John left the faint scratch on his Harley from Dylan's botched theft-to-battle scar, reminding him of the fight. In the end, standing up to bullies wasn't just about winning. It was about justice over vengeance, safeguarding home and family in a world quick to trample the little guy. Yet, as online forums buzzed with polarized opinions, John wondered if the real controversy was how easily such tyrants rose and how many more lurked in idyllic suburbs everywhere.